When using fillets, there are some options that are seldom used, but can be helpful if you understand how they work. Let's spend a few moments reviewing what each of these options does by taking a look at simple examples using the standard constant radius fillet. First, let's take a look at setback parameters. If you create a fillet on 3 edges that come together at a vertex, you have the option to control how these 3 fillets will blend together. Without using setback parameters, this is the result you would get. I'll recreate the fillet, this time using setback parameters. With all 3 edges selected, I can now activate the vertex selection window and pick the corner point. When I do, 3 edges appear in the setback distances window. I'll enter a setback distance of 1 inch and click the Set All button. The 1 inch setback is applied to all 3 edges. What I'd like to do is set a smaller distance for the vertical edge. As I click the edges in the list, you'll see an arrow appear in the graphics area indicating which item in the list corresponds to which edge. With the vertical edge selected, I'll enter a value of 0.25 and press enter. You can already see the preview showing a smaller transition on the vertical edge compared to the other edges. I'll click OK and the fillet is complete. Next, let's take a look at the Keep Features option. This option controls how a fillet will affect features that are near the fillet region. In this example, there's an extrusion near this edge. If I create a large fillet here, what should happen to the extrusion? If I apply a 1 inch fillet using the default setting of Keep Features, the feature will be extended so it remains attached to the part. If instead I clear the Keep Features option, the extrude feature will be completely eliminated by the fillet. Below the Keep Features options, there is the Round Corners option. This allows you to automatically break sharp edges that result when a fillet is applied to sharp corners. This is a fillet created using the default settings. If the same fillet is created using the Round Corners option, the sharp corners are replaced with smooth edges. The last option we'll take a look at is Overflow Type. What happens when a fillet is large enough that it overflows off of a face? You have 2 options when this situation occurs. You can keep the existing edge, as you see here, or you can keep the fillet surface, which will cause the existing edge to be modified. The default setting in Solidworks will allow the software to choose either option. If you wish to force one result or the other, simply select the one you like in the Property Manager. Variable radius fillets play an important role in designing consumer products and other complex shapes. Their simplest application is to create a fillet along an edge that changes in radius from one side to the other. Let's take a look at how to define a fillet like this. Like any other fillet, you start a variable radius fillet by clicking the fillet icon. I'll select the variable radius option in the Property Manager. Notice the full preview option is enabled. This will make it easy to see the effect of some of the options we'll be talking about. I begin by selecting this edge to apply the fillet. A variable radius fillet is defined by assigning radius values to 2 or more vertices. In this case, you can see 2 radius flags pointing to either end of the edge I selected. Neither of them has been assigned a value, as you can see. To assign a value, you can enter a radius here in the Property Manager. But how do you know which vertex you're defining? One way is to select the vertex from the list of vertices that appears in the Property Manager. When I click V1 in the list, notice one of the flags is highlighted in the graphics area. Now when I enter a value and press enter, you can see a radius has been assigned. I'll highlight the next vertex in the list, enter a radius, and press enter. We'll take a look at some other options in a moment, but first, let's concentrate on the effect of this transition setting here. If you take a look at the preview in the graphics area, you'll notice that the edge of the fillet is a smooth curve connecting the two radii. If I change the setting to straight transition, notice the edge of the fillet is a straight line. Of course, choosing the proper setting is entirely up to you and what your design calls for, but you should be aware of this setting in case you're not getting the results you expect. I'll click OK to accept these settings. Next, let's add another variable radius fillet to take a look at another important option. This time, I'll select the lower edge and I'll assign values to each vertex. Notice that instead of entering values in the Property Manager like I did before, I'll double-click the flags in the graphics area to specify each radius. After entering a value, I'll press Enter to see a preview. Notice there are points that appear along this edge. These are available control points that I can use to further vary the radius of the fillet along the edge. To remove or to add more of these available control points, I can change this value in the Property Manager. Although these control points are available, they are not active. Right now, I only have 2 control points, the 2 vertices. To activate one of these intermediate points, I have to select it in the graphics area. When I do, a flag appears allowing me to enter 2 values, a radius and a percentage value. This percentage represents how far along the edge this control point is located. At 50%, the point is located halfway along the edge. This can be a great tool, especially if you're working on a curved edge where it might be difficult to locate the exact center. Just type in 50% or whatever value you're interested in, and SolidWorks will find it for you. I'll click OK and complete the fillet. Finally, I'll add one more variable radius fillet to demonstrate a convenient way to specify values for multiple points. I'll click the fillet icon and select variable radius for the fillet type, and I'll select this edge. Notice that because tangent propagation is enabled, one fillet will propagate all around. However, if I don't select the other edges, I won't be able to specify values at these other points. To enable these points, I'll select each edge, and you can see each point will have a flag for me to specify a value. This is when it can be convenient to use the Set, Unassigned, and Set All button in the Property Manager. Suppose I want every point to have a radius of 0.1, except 2 of these points. Well, rather than double-clicking each flag to enter a value, I can enter the 0.1 value and click the Set Unassigned button. Because none of the points had a value assigned, they have all taken on the 0.1 value. If you wish to make a change that affects all of these points, you can enter a value, 0.25 in this case, and click Set All. This will cause even the already assigned values to change. Finally, I'll double-click a couple of points and change their values. Then click OK to complete the fillet. Face fillets have several uses. They can span across small gaps. They can be useful in blending complex surfaces, and they can be defined by a boundary line instead of a radius. Let's take a look at an example of spanning across a gap. Sometimes a complicated model can end up with small gaps without you knowing. This can also be a result of bad imported geometry. In this case, I've created an example that has one of those difficult to detect gaps. If I attempt to create a fillet on this edge, you can see by the preview that something is wrong. In fact, if I zoom in, you can see that there is a tiny gap between these two faces. In the case of a complex model, it can be difficult to find the cause of a gap like this. Instead of trying to fix this, you can use a face fillet to blend the two faces across the gap. I'll select the fillet icon and change the fillet type to face fillet. I'll specify the radius and select the two faces that I wish to blend. Notice that each face must be selected into a separate selection window. The selections will be color-coded matching their corresponding window. I'll click OK and the fillet is complete. There are times when you need to create a fillet and you don't care what size it is, as long as it ends at a certain point. For example, in this part, I want to fillet this edge. The size isn't important. Instead, the important thing is that the fillet completely eliminates this face, ending right at this edge. The face fillet allows me to do this. I'll select the fillet icon and change the type to face fillet. I'll select the two faces into the selection windows, but I won't worry about entering a specific value. Instead, I'll expand the fillet options section in the Property Manager. In the holding line section window, I'll select this edge. The fillet will automatically adjust so it ends precisely at the edge I selected. This would be impossible to do with a constant radius fillet. Although fillets create tangent surfaces, they don't create curvature continuous surfaces. Let's take a look at this part. I have two solid bodies that are identical in every way, except one has a regular fillet and one has a curvature continuous face fillet. You may not be able to tell the difference, but watch when I display the curvature of each face. I'll right-click each face and select Curvature. This display allows you to see changes in curvature as different colors. Notice this body shows a gradual change in curvature from the lower face through the fillet face. This body displays two completely different curvatures that change sharply where the two faces meet. The curvature continuous fillet is a type of fillet face. I'll edit this fillet, and down here in the Property Manager, you can see the option for curvature continuous. You should be aware that this type of fillet is generally more difficult and time-consuming to manufacture, so you'll want to use it sparingly to keep manufacturing costs down. When you need to create a full round fillet on a part like this here, there's a special fillet type you can use rather than creating one fillet on each side. This is especially helpful if the fillet has to vary in radius. To use the full round fillet, just click the fillet icon and select Full Round in the Property Manager. You'll be prompted to select at least 3 faces that identify the round. In the first section, you'll select one side of the round, then the face you wish to eliminate with the round, and finally, the other side of the round. You'll see a preview, and as with other fillets, if the edges are tangent, the fillet will propagate as long as the option is enabled. Adding fillets can often be a tedious process, especially when the geometry you're working with is complex. Fillet Xpert makes the filleting process more flexible, allowing you to create multiple fillets at the same time, resolving geometry problems and making it possible to selectively resize fillets you've already created. Let's take a look at these capabilities using this sample part. Fillet Xpert is not a separate feature, but rather added functionality within the fillet feature you're already familiar with. I'll launch the fillet feature to bring up the Fillet Property Manager. At the very top, you have the option to select Fillet Xpert. When it's selected, the Property Manager changes slightly. Notice the different types of fillets are no longer listed. Fillet Xpert functionality is only available for constant radius fillets. In fact, if a fillet type other than constant radius is selected, the Fillet Xpert button will not be available. First, let's take a look at the benefit of having the Apply button available in Fillet Xpert. I can enter a radius value, 0.25 in this case, select the cyan-colored face and click Apply. The fillet has been applied, but the Property Manager is still here, making it possible for me to continue adding more fillets without restarting the fillet feature. I'll select the magenta-colored face and click Apply again. To dismiss the Property Manager, I'll click OK. Notice 2 individual fillets have been created. This is important to note. If you intended for these to be a single feature, you could have selected the cyan face together with the magenta face before applying the fillet. Fillet Xpert can also automatically invoke Feature Xpert when necessary. I'll launch the fillet feature once again. Notice the Property Manager is already showing Fillet Xpert. This setting is remembered from the last time I used the fillet feature. This time, I'll select the two brown faces. And click Apply. Because we're using Fillet Xpert, the errors are automatically resolved by invoking the use of Feature Xpert. When I click OK, you can see 2 additional fillets have been added. Let's launch the Fillet feature once again to see another powerful application of Fillet Xpert. Earlier, I added a fillet on this cylindrical feature by selecting the cylindrical face. This means that a single fillet feature is responsible for 2 edges being filleted. What I'd like to do now is change the fillet radius on just one of the 2 edges. In the past, I'd have to edit the fillet, redefine it so it only contained 1 edge. Then I could create a second fillet to control the radius of the second edge. This procedure is not difficult, but it can be time-consuming. Now we no longer have to go through this process. All we do is enable the Change tab in the Property Manager and select the fillet that we wish to change. I'll enter a value of 1 inch and click Resize. I can also select Filleted Edge and click Remove. Fillet Xpert will make any necessary changes to my feature manager tree, such as creating new fillet features, deleting features, or reordering features as required. Before I click OK, notice I also have the ability to select sets of fillets using their radius value here in the existing fillets list. This is a convenient way of making changes to all fillets having the same radius. At this point, I'll click OK, and you can see that what used to be a single feature controlling the size of both fillets on the cylindrical boss has been broken up into 2 separate features automatically.